From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
The buzz on bees. Researchers think they've uncovered some secrets that could help keep these popular pollinators on the job. Battling dryness.
Our root system are so shallow that the corn in the area is turning yellow.
While the heat may be good for growth, moisture is starting to be in short supply as the markets sink.
And we've had one of the most bullish moves I've ever seen since about April of 2020.
A look at what's fueling the sell-off right now on AgDay. Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Grain markets continuing to slide on Thursday on an improving weather outlook and recession concerns. Traders piling in, pushing the December corn futures contract down more than 30 cents, and November soybeans were off 60 at one point. Both markets at their lowest point since April. Wheat was also down about a quarter. But it wasn't just grain futures. Cotton dropped anywhere from $4.50 to $7 per hundred. Lean hogs were down $2 to $3 per hundred, and oil also trading lower during the session. Now, analysts say there was broad market liquidation because world central banks are now raising interest rates.
We've seen the funds starting to step out of the markets here over the last month, and now they've just accelerated that. And we are in a secular bear market, which means we have 10 years of a bull side and 20 years of a bear side. And that started in 2010. It won't end until 2030. And one of the characteristics for the listeners, if they don't understand what that is, it's volatility. It's big moves up and then followed by big moves down. And we've had one of the most bullish moves I've ever seen since about April of 2020, starting in beans, August of 2020 in corn. And I think we're coming to the end of it here. And now we're about ready to drop like a rock from a plane.
While there are macroeconomic issues at play, new forecasts are also easing some concern for crops in the next couple of weeks.
View at the GFS introduced quite a bit more rain for the western, say 2/3 of the Corn Belt, Iowa, Minnesota, Nebraska, the Dakotas. It's not a perfect forecast. There's no such thing. A lot of the eastern Corn Belt still dry through that time frame based on what I've seen in the weather models, at least. Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, places further south, still dry. I think the other factor, in addition to weather, is recession risk. Commodity markets do not perform well during recessions, whether it's crude oil, corn, soybeans, gold, and silver might be your lone exception there, but they don't like recessions.
And while a more favorable forecast is impacting prices, concerns about dryness, well, they aren't gone. Take a look at the latest drought monitor. It shows that drought increased slightly this week after 14 straight weeks of declines. Right now, 45.3% of the contiguous U.S. is in some sort of drought. That's up from last week's 44.5. And there's been a dramatic change in the nation's topsoil moisture conditions week over week. USDA reporting a 10% increase from 25% to 35%, short to very short, as we start to see the impacts of a very large ridge of high pressure with heat and a lack of rainfall creating significant drying across the U.S. Now, the last time a jump like this happened was back in August of 2020.
Which is about the time we were starting to slip into the extended drought that we still find ourselves in here in 2022.
It is worth noting that topsoil moisture surplus was cut in half from the previous week, from 12 down to 6%, most of the loss happening in states like Ohio, Maine, and Vermont. Nationally, crop conditions deteriorated due to the recent heat, especially in states like Illinois, which saw a drop in the good to excellent rating by 6% on corn and 10% on beans. However, in Minnesota, the hot, dry weather was welcomed by farmers who have had heavy rains this spring, slowing planting and emergence. Now, crop ratings improved by 7% on corn, 3% on soybeans this last week in that state. Mark Meyer says the weather helped advance growing degree days.
I'm not real concerned with it. Actually, it may benefit us. Our root system are so shallow that the corn in the area is turning yellow because the roots ain't down to the nitrogen yet.
Meyer says he did have to do some replant of his soybeans after a tornado ripped through southwestern Minnesota, but overall, he's not as optimistic about yield prospects as he was last year when they got the crop planted early. And while corn and soybeans are developing in these warmer conditions, there's concern about too many dry days in a row. Meteorologist Matt Yurosopik joins us with an update. Matt?
Yeah, Clinton, that's right. And as we head through the next at least 7 days, not much moisture is going to be around for parts of the Corn Belt until we get towards day 8, 9, 10 of our forecast period. But if we look at the root zone, you'll notice a lot of red right through the middle of the country, and even some drier spots popping up in the Great Lakes, and then extremely dry spots starting to pop up in parts of the Mid-Atlantic and the Southeast as well. And if you look at the drought monitor as we head through the last 4 weeks, what you're going to notice is not much changing out west except for in the Pacific Northwest, but we're going to be watching for more drought conditions popping up as we head through the last week, and that is really from the Mississippi River and then on to the east. And this is that flash drought that we had talked about yesterday with the rapid onset of the drying and those drought conditions. And it looks like that is going to continue at least for the next week. Once we get towards the end of this 10-day period, a lot more rain is looking likely for parts of the Corn Belt. So we'll continue to monitor that as we move a little bit farther and into the month of July. And you have to watch this. Jordan Fulton of Alto, Texas, shared this video with us. She says her kids love to close the gate at Papa's Ranch and have their dad turn the backup camera on so they can show off what they can do. She says her 5-year-old was really feeling it. Who knew closing the gate could make you bust a move? I'll have more on your forecast coming up.
Grazing federal lands in Idaho is getting new rules from the U.S. Forest Service, but not everyone is pleased. The agency agreeing to waive fees for unauthorized grazing in some cases, following a 2016 GAO report that found it couldn't really tell how much unauthorized grazing was going on because cases were often handled informally or with no documentation. Now, some environmental groups say the decision only creates loopholes and allows the illegal grazing to continue, while the Public Lands Council says it supports this decision, adding that it simply provides clarity for livestock growers. We'll dig deeper into this week's market meltdown coming up next. And later, how studying the DNA of bees could help protect these important pollinators for the future in the country.
Ag Day is brought to you by the End Zone by Farm Shop MFG, which allows you to rehydrate your soybeans from 10 to 13%. On a 20,000 bushel bin, that's an extra semi-load added to your bottom line. Order your End Zone fan control by July 31st and receive $200 off.
There are fewer farms in the U.S. today than at any time since the mid-1800s, but the amount of land being farmed remains constant. Now take a look at this new graph from USDA. In 2021, there were just over 2 million farms here in the U.S., shown in dark blue. That's down from 2.2 million back in 2007 and well below the peak of 6.8 million farms set back in 1935. Well, USDA says the drop reflects productivity gains in agriculture and increasing non-farm employment opportunities, and the amount of land being farmed is holding relatively steady. That's in red at roughly 900 million acres. All told, the average farm size, there in green, well, it continues to tick up, now at 445 acres, just slightly higher than the 440 acre average set back in the 1970s. We're joined by Darren Fry with Water Street Solutions. Now, Darren, earlier in the show, you made some pretty big statements about whether we're in this bear bull market, this longer term bear market is what you said.
Yes.
What is these market moves that we've been seeing here over the last weeks? Where are we headed now? You mentioned maybe the top was in. Are we sure that that's the case given all of the weather stuff that we're seeing and plus this conflict with Russia and Ukraine?
Yeah, we have a conflict over there that's really caused logistical problems, and we have a weather situation that looks pretty bullish, but there's no question in my mind that soybeans and soybean oil have made tops. I mean, we're unfolding impulsively to the downside, and so rallies are for selling there. I've had to call a top in those markets. Corn looks okay still. We've seen really good spread activity with July gaining on SEP gaining on Ds, and basis. You know, the basis so on fire out west and out east. And so it's hard to call a top there. And we haven't had the chart damage in both corn and wheat like we've had in soybeans and soybean oil. So I think some of these markets are still in an upward bias, but definitely beans and oil are looking down.
Some caution flags there, obviously. Now, we've been talking quite a bit of weather here. There is some dryness. The drought monitor showed that through the middle of the Corn Belt. Any chance this reignites some of the conversations and maybe gets those bulls a little more excited?
Maybe for corn, but beans are going to be more of an indeterminate plant, and they're going to make their yield out in August. And maybe we will nick the corn, and corn will have to go higher to ration demand. But if we have good weather, we find out on June 30th, we have a lot more acres, or maybe find some more supply in soybeans on that stocks report. I mean, the beans are signaling something is wrong, and we better look out below.
All right, well, it'll be something to watch. Obviously, a pretty dynamic week. We'll continue to track it right here with us. Darren, thank you so much for being here today. We'll be back with more Ag Day coming up in just a minute.
For marketing strategy specific to your operation, contact Water Street Solutions at 866-249-2528 or online at www.waterstreet.org. It's time to sign up for the 2022 United Pork Americas Conference in Orlando, Florida. Register today at unitedporkamericas.com and join us September 7th through the 9th.
Meteorologist Matt Yurosavik joining us here, taking a look at the drought monitor, and right in that area where you talked about this flash drought, we can see that dryness showing up.
Yeah, and it popped up on this drought monitor, but we expect that to continue as we head through next week, and that's why we really want to highlight this area and make sure people are aware of this heading into the 4th of July holiday. And that 4th of July holiday, very important. A lot of folks lighting off fireworks, and with all of this drought out there and drought in places that we haven't seen it in quite a while, that's something that you really need to pay attention to. But we're also right through parts of the Corn Belt and then back up into the upper Midwest, where we really need to watch this as more drought conditions likely to develop again right in this area that we have circled here over the next week, before more rain could be coming in, at least for the western Corn Belt, as we head into the month of July. And here's a look at the precipitation as we head through Friday, through the weekend. You're going to be looking at not a whole lot, a little bit here for the upper Midwest, and a lot more back into West Texas, back into New Mexico and Colorado, even parts of Kansas. Going to be looking good there. Need the rain, and they're going to see some of that. And then more in the south and east, with another high pressure system popping up some of those showers and storms. Temperature is still going to be warm, though, even though we're dealing with rain back in parts of the Four Corners region. It'll be a little bit cooler where we're under some of that rain, but still triple digits back in the center part of the country. 80s and 90s, especially off to the east, and staying very humid out there, as you can see from those low temperatures. Only getting down into the 60s, 70s, and even some 80s still on the map. And then by tomorrow, again, still looking at that high heat and humidity, really from the Rockies on to the east, and just about south of where that Mason-Dixon line is. That's going to be where the heat is going to be maximized. North of there, though, a little chance for some severe storms on Friday. Isolated tornado threat, some heavier downpours, and even some small hail possible in the upper Midwest. And that's with this system right here, kind of moving right through the upper Midwest, and then a cold front to the north. Kind of the combination of both of those going to give us that chance for some storms. Otherwise, things mostly clear across the lower 48. Not dealing with too much out there as we're heading through this week, and that's because the jet stream still well to the north, allowing all that heat and humidity to keep its way right on in here into the lower 48, and it's going to stick around as we head into the month of July. That's a look around the country. Now let's take a look at the weather where you live. Barnwell, South Carolina, a chance for thunderstorms, a high near 93 degrees, a high of 83 in Des Moines, Iowa, with scattered thunderstorms likely. And then in Bakersfield, California, it is sunny and hot, a high near 101 degrees.
It's reported Russian forces targeted at least 2 grain terminals in Ukraine this week. Canada's Viterra and U.S. grain trader Bunge confirm their terminals were both hit. The terminals are located in the southern port city of Mykolaiv, the country's second largest port. Now, Bunge says its facility had been closed since the start of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Viterra confirming as well its facility was hit and said at the time it was on fire. Now, it says 1 employee suffered minor burns. Meanwhile, Russia and Turkey have agreed to more talks on restarting Ukraine grain exporters. Russia's defense ministry saying that Russian and Turkish delegations have agreed to continue these consultations. The talks center around the safe exit of Turkish merchant vessels and grain exports from Ukrainian ports. Now, those talks have been called positive and constructive. It's also reported a Turkish dry cargo ship stuck at the Ukrainian port of Mariupol safely departed from the port hours after the meeting. The Turkish foreign minister saying they are investigating claims that Ukrainian grain was stolen by Russia and then shipped to Turkey. The South African Minister of International Relations says negotiations should be prioritized to free Ukrainian grain. And she says the Ukrainian president's claim that African nations have been taken hostage by Russia's continued blockade of Ukraine grain is odd.
I found the hostage notion odd in the context of discussions that are trying to find a solution to this. The situation of not having access to wheat is a very problematic one for many countries on the African continent because it does affect their food security situation. So we have to find a solution to that, one that both Ukraine and Russia would agree to.
Now, a number of African countries abstained from condemning Russia's invasion at the United Nations General Assembly earlier this year, including South Africa. The South African minister stood by that decision, adding they are not against Ukraine, but say they would like a peaceful settlement. Something is buzzing in farm country, and these researchers are hoping to keep it that way as they start to unlock some of the secrets of bees in the country.
Your next piece of equipment is on MachineryPete.com. Search equipment from dealerships across the country to find what you're looking for. Only on MachineryPete.com.
It's National Pollinator Week, and one of the best pollinators around is the honeybee. Right now, USDA's Animal Research Service is looking at ways to keep things buzzing by cracking the code surrounding bee genomics.
Honeybees contribute massively to pollination in our agricultural system. The ease of use currently is unmatched by sort of any other system, really. They also represent a separate economy in and of itself, so not only do honeybees by pollination enhance our agricultural economy, but honeybee products provide like an economic basis for a lot of families in the US. So this becomes a significant sort of impact for not only on that sort of independent business scale, but also on the broader sort of agricultural food safety sort of mission for the USDA.
Honeybees are a part of our everyday lives, from the sweet honey we consume to the beauty products we use. And while many bees are pollinators, honeybees are the most significant managed pollinator worldwide, providing pollination services for a variety of crops in addition to honey production. The demands on these insects are intense.
Honeybee currently are being threatened by a variety of factors. We call them the 4 Ps, so it's pathogens, parasites, poor nutrition, and pesticides.
ARS research geneticist Ariane Avalos is researching ways to help these extremely hard workers stay healthy and productive, which will benefit both our economy and our taste buds. One way of achieving this goal is to breed honeybees with improved traits, but that can be a sticky situation. It is tough to breed a honeybee when you can't characterize their traits because they are regulated by many genes and they buzz around mostly in groups. However, Dr. Avalos may have discovered a game changer by unlocking a particular region in the genome responsible for the trait known as colony defensive behavior. This trait is of particular interest because honeybee colonies that are overly defensive are undesirable from both a colony management and public health perspective.
Honeybee breeding is to develop honeybee populations that are sort of more amenable and more agreeable for commercial beekeeper usage. And for this particular characteristics, it's great all around because it allows the beekeepers to manage them with greater safety. The mission for the Agricultural Research Service facility that I work in is effectively food security for the United States. Part of how we guarantee that is by maintaining sort of, again, our premier pollinators healthy and productive. And we largely do that as our lab's focus is through breeding and physiology assessment of these honeybees, breeding being the key point in our mission.
Dr. Avalos' findings will help provide a roadmap for the analysis of complex honeybee traits, which will help keep our vital pollinators healthy and productive. After all, healthier honeybees equals a healthier world.
And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day out in farm country.